Well, good afternoon, everyone. I understand Senator Schumer says that incompetence is leading to chaos. Let me suggest the only chaos we have in the Senate is because of Senate Democrats. Just to give you an example, they continued to talk filibustering in the Judiciary Committee today until they could invoke the 2-hour rule and guarantee that Senator Sessions not get out of the committee today. You've witnessed during the course of the week no consent to anything. So let's make sure everybody understands the source of chaos. The source of chaos is the Democratic conference here in the Senate. It is time to get over the fact that they lost the election. The president is entitled to have his cabinet appointments considered. None of this is going to lead to a different outcome. The cabinet appointments are going to be approved. I think they look quite foolish. And so I'll just say again, the only chaos we're having in the Senate is created intentionally by the Democratic minority. Secondly, we're going to have a Supreme Court nomination tonight. I anticipate it will be a highly qualified individual. What I would expect from our Democratic friends is the nominee be handled similarly to President Clinton's 2 nominees in his first term and President Obama's 2 nominees in his first term. And none of those 4 were, none of them had to get cloture. In other words, they were given an up or down vote, those 4 nominees. The only Supreme Court nominee recently who's not been given an up or down vote was Justice Alito, but cloture was invoked, and so we moved ahead with the nomination. My assumption, since Senator Merkley has already indicated he's opposed to cloture no matter who the nominee is, that we will have a cloture vote at some point, and I hope that cloture will be invoked. But we're all talking in the hypothetical because we don't have a nominee yet. We'll have one tonight. I think it'll be something the American people will be proud of. Thank you.
I know with all this pattern of resistance and obstruction by the Democratic leadership, I know in part it's not their natural instincts. So many of us have worked with Senator Schumer a long time. He tends to be a pretty practical sort of person. But I realize he's being pulled by the Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren faction of his own party and is really unable to do the sort of basic things that always happen after elections, to cooperate, to give the president his choice in the cabinet that he's chosen, subject to Senate confirmation. You've heard it before, I'll just mention it again. 7 cabinet members confirmed the first day President Obama was sworn into office, January the 20th, 2009. And now it's clear, both on the floor and through committee action, that they're going to try to string this out as long as they possibly can. This morning in the Judiciary Committee, members of the Democratic side spoke 45 minutes or so each. Up to that long, we were unable to conclude Jeff Sessions' confirmation vote in the committee today, but we will vote him out of the committee tomorrow. And my hope is that in due course, very soon, we're going to get him to the floor of the Senate and confirmed as the next Attorney General of the United States. The reason why that's so important is because we've seen a hyper-politicized Department of Justice under President Obama with Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch. The American people want the rule of law restored in this country, and they want somebody as Attorney General who will enforce the law against anyone who breaks the law, and Jeff Sessions will do that.
Just to put an additional point on what my colleagues have said about the obstructionism, I sit on the Finance Committee, and so I was there this morning waiting for us to consider the 2 nominees for Secretary of Health and Human Services, neither of which was able to be processed today because the Democrats decided to boycott and not show up, and which is really unfortunate. Those are important positions. The Treasury deals with issues that impact our economy on a daily basis. The Secretary of Health and Human Services obviously is going to have a major role in helping us come up with a solution to the health care coverage crisis that has been created by Obamacare. And so it's really important that the Democrats get over it and start to play ball. And we've got work to do for the American people. The election's over, it's time to move on, and I hope that they'll come to their senses and realize that. With respect to the court, the President, during the course of the campaign, put forward a list that included 20 or thereabouts names of people that he would nominate, and we expect that the nominee that he puts forward tonight will be somebody who is a mainstream and well-qualified judge, somebody who has the temperament and has the right view of the Supreme Court under our Constitution. And as the leader pointed out, the practice has been very adhered to around the Senate here for a long time, and that is that these are not filibustered. That was true under President Clinton. Both Breyer and Ginsburg were received up and down votes, and of course under President Obama, he got Sotomayor and Kagan also without the filibuster. And so we hope that the Democrats will follow through on what has been the tradition here for a long time in the United States Senate and allow this nominee to have a process, to have hearings and answer questions and do everything that we normally do, but to allow that person to be voted on up and down. They can vote no, but let's get on with the people's business and what I think the American people expect from us, and that's for us to do our work and govern and get these people in position and able to go about their jobs.
In addition to the nominations that we'll be voting on and confirming, we're also going to be working on the blizzard of regulations that have come out at the end of the Obama administration. President Obama basically was the regulator-in-chief, and there has been a regulatory rampage to the point of over 3,000 regulations with an impact of over $900 billion to the economy. Now, they're supposed to take a look at the cost and benefit of regulations. What we've seen with the Obama administration is that they tend to underestimate the cost, exaggerate the benefits, and the costs are real, and in so many ways the benefits are theoretical. And the worst offense was by the EPA, over $300 billion worth of regulations and the impact that they've had on jobs, on the economy, and on take-home pay for working families. And even as President Obama was a lame duck, after Election Day, he still came out with 198 regulations to a cost of over $100 billion. So you have all of these midnight regulations, and we are going to be using the Congressional Review Act to take those away and get that onto the President Trump's desk so he can sign an elimination of those regulations. He is committed to do that. The House will likely pass 5 of those Congressional Review Acts tomorrow. They'll then come to the Senate for us to act so we can restore the balance when you take a look at cost and benefit, and so that the cost incurred equal the benefits that can accrue.
I wasn't in the Senate 8 years ago. I assume Republican senators were not happy with the way the election had gone. But by this day in that administration, 20 people had been confirmed. The Democrats have now allowed 5 cabinet members to be voted on. By this day, 8 years ago, the Senate was dealing with the other positions that need to be confirmed. The deputies in these agencies, the assistant secretaries, already working on the sub-cabinet level help that a president needs to do his job and a cabinet secretary needs to do their job. And we need to get on with the business and the responsibility of allowing the government to be put in place.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Look, standing in the back, exactly right. I'm Cory Booker. It happens a lot. Just want to say this. Recently in Colorado, there was a survey done of small business owners, and the survey showed that people are more optimistic about the economy than they have been in a number of years. And they're more optimistic about our economy than they have been in the past several years because of the work that we are doing to ease the regulatory burden, to make sure that they know they're going to have the possibility of comprehensive tax relief, and to make sure they know they're going to have more opportunities to thrive in the next several years because of the work that this majority is accomplishing. When it comes to the Supreme Court nominee, it's hard to believe that you have to oppose the nominee before you know the nominee. And that's exactly what the Democrats are doing. It's an unacceptable and unprecedented level of obstruction. The American people in Colorado, go to work each and every day, and they expect our colleagues in the Senate to do the same. And I would urge every senator to live up to the respect, the dignity, and the honor that the American people have given us to do our job. That's what we've been asked to do.
Well, General Kelly had a press conference at noon today. I think he's a highly competent Secretary of Homeland Security. I think he's the best one to address the kind of issues that you're talking about, and I believe he's did that midday.
Sir, how can the Senate be pushing the Mobile Now Act, S-19, and the Digit Act, which is S-88, which is going to put a mini small cell tower about every 3 homes, especially when the World Health Organization has classified the microwave from wireless as a Class 2B carcinogen, and the GAO recommended that the FCC review their safety standards, and they haven't done that in the last 4 years. And these new high frequencies they're using have never been tested for biological or health effects. We're basically testing them on our own people, and this isn't right. How can the Senate push this kind of measure and the 5G technology with no assurance that this technology is safe and thousands of studies showing...
Do you have a question, or is that just a statement? Yeah, well, let me just say that what I said earlier will be on the nominee for Secretary of State. That's the agenda in the Senate for this week, is cabinet appointments and Congressional Review Act.
Mr. Leader, I know what you said in the past a couple of days about apocalyptic words from the Democrats, end times. I know what you said about the so-called Biden move. But my question is, why would you expect the Democrats to perform any differently on whomever the president nominates tonight based on the treatment of Garland?
Let's try one more time. In the middle of a presidential election year, it had been 80 years since a Supreme Court vacancy had been filled. In the middle of a presidential election year, you'd have to go back to 1888, Grover Cleveland in the White House, to find the last time a Senate of the opposite party of the president filled a Supreme Court vacancy. If that's not enough, Catherine Rumler, one of President Obama's White House counsels, confirmed that had the shoe been on the other foot, they wouldn't have filled the vacancy. This is the beginning of a 4-year term. This is not in the middle of a presidential election. And as all of us have said, there have been Supreme Court appointments in the middle of the first term for Bill Clinton, for Barack Obama. None of those 4 nominees was denied an up or down vote. So let's talk about apples and apples and not apples and oranges. This is the beginning of a new presidency. Donald Trump ought to be treated exactly the same as Bill Clinton and Barack Obama were by the Senate minority.
The chaos you mentioned, in the Finance Committee at least, the objection was that nominees said things that appeared not to be true. What should the Senate's response be when nominees say things that don't exist?
My answer to that, if it wasn't that, it'd be something else. I mean, you all are alert. You're alert. You know what's going on. They're manufacturing issues on a daily basis to drag this process out and to treat this president's initial cabinet appointments differently from the way we have treated presidents of the Democratic Party in similar circumstances. I don't see how they can explain to the American people how it is appropriate to prevent the administration from getting up and getting started. And the way you do that is to approve cabinet members. Do you all think we were enthusiastic about President Obama's first cabinet selections? Really. We were not enthusiastic about them, but we did not prevent him from getting up and functioning. A totally different treatment by the Senate minority at the beginning of Obama from what we're experiencing here. Well, the committee chairmen are handling this in an appropriate way, in a way very similar to the way committee chairmen handled nominees in the past. We've got a clear understanding of how nominees out of various committees have been handled in the past, and all of our chairmen are trying to treat these nominees exactly the same way. I'm going to take one more. Alex?
Are you worried at all about the lack of cooperation with the Trump administration from executive branch employees who either aren't carrying out directives or resigning or leaking stuff to the media?
I'm not sure what your question is. Try one more time.
Concerned about a lack of cooperation by longtime executive branch employees with the Trump administration as there's a new Trump administration coming in, people aren't willing to carry out the directives?
Yeah, well, I think the president knows how to handle that. He had that experience within the last 24 hours, and I think he knows how to handle a lack of cooperation from those who were temporarily in place. Thanks a lot.
We saw